Hello everybody, I'm Raphael Perry and it's time for some more Lone Wolf. We're still in book 3 and have just made it into the icy fortress of Ikaya. I wasn't able to record earlier tonight, now it's the morning, I have some time, I'm not sure exactly how long I have. I might have enough time to finish the book, but if I reach a certain point and it feels like I'll check the clock, essentially. And if it feels like I'm not going to have enough time to do all of it, I will stop then, rather than push on until I run out of time, as it were. So let's see how we go. We've just used the bluestone triangle to go through the gateway, and are now inside the fortress proper. The crystal frostworm lies defeated in the cavern outside us, and we did not need to defeat the Kalkoff because we acted like a dishonourable git and murdered the barbarians for their bluestone crystal, purely because trying to fight that Kalkoff with so much endurance, it's just inviting failure. It's essentially a punishment for not choosing a different choice option earlier. I'm trying to remember if the route up the Viad Glacier gives an option to obtain a bluestone triangle there, or if there's another way to get in. I know there's 2 or 3 different entrances to the underground caverns which all lead to the fortress, so I'm not sure. Anyway, let's press on. The corridor in which you now stand is far warmer than the icy cavern outside. For the first time in many days you can lower the hood of your cloak and remove your mittens without risking frostbite. You notice that the stone passage ascends to a landing where another passage branches off to the east. Malar balls hang at regular intervals along the arched ceiling, their unnatural light illuminating the carved walls. As you approach the landing, you notice an archway leading into a small room beyond. A strange sight meets your eyes. Ragged furs, pottery shards, and the debris of hundreds of years seems to have been thrown into this channel. A large lever protrudes from the wall beside the archway. Now, I will be comparing this to the map from the Mongoose adventure, The Corruption of Ikaya, which involves a small group of heroes sneaking into the fortress and infiltrating it to remove an imposter who is attempting to usurp the Brumalmark's throne. Here we go. It should be not Lone Wolf D20. It's the other one, isn't it? Not core rules, no. There we go. And it's been a while since I last opened this, so 52-ish. Now, this map does not entirely match up, but this chamber, let's see. As you approach the landing, you notice an archway leading to a small room beyond. A strange sight meets your eyes. Ragged furs, pottery shards, and the debris of hundreds of years seem to have been thrown into this chamber. A large lever protrudes from the wall beside the archway. Now, that could actually be this chamber here, which should be on the side, or this one before the T-junction. This looks like a rubbish room, so let's see. Information barracks, 6, 7, 8. Maintenance room. Junk room. So they chucked their rubbish in a different room earlier, apparently. I don't know why they'd move it to that room. Now, this level is slightly different. In that we can go... First off, I'm going to presume that south is at the top, because we have approached the fortress from any direction other than the north. And it's highly unlikely that travelling through the underground caverns has led us around the fortress to the back, and we're now coming down from above. So if we invert this map mentally... Then again, right, this is not the whole fortress, this is just a portion of it, right? So in theory, the underground portion of the fortress could sprawl out in different directions. We could be coming from the north if we just loop round and there's a bit under here, essentially. However, when we get to this portion, and are given the option of east or west, we will be heading north, and I think these directions are flipped, so I think south is at the top. Additionally, there are some differences to the contents of the rooms. Why do I feel the one in the magazine was had slightly different maps? Anyway, it might not be exact. And also, this is set earlier, at like 50 years earlier, I think. So any damaged sections we encounter or rooms with different contents could have changed in the meantime. For instance, in this earlier one, the barbarians believe this door is stuck, and they've housed Doomwolves in here instead. So, we could enter the room and investigate, pull the lever, or explore eastwards along the passageway. So, presumably west, coming in, going east, and then we arrive. There's a corner, then it comes down, so that corner's been omitted. It's like someone skimmed over the old book and, you know, made a map where they just did straight lines to connect the rooms rather than reading the descriptions more. Anyway, we will enter the room and investigate. After 10 minutes of searching the room, you discover an old fur backpack and a long coil of rope. You may take the backpack only if you do not have one already, if you do not already wear one. The rope counts as 2 backpack items, as it takes up extra space. Finally satisfied that there is nothing else of value in this junk-filled room, you leave and continue your exploration along the East Passage. So, I will write rope here, and then rope in brackets, because the rope is a 2-slot item. You soon reach the bottom of a flight of broad stone steps that ascends northwards to a landing 30 feet above. So we were heading east. East Passage, heading east, which now somehow turns to head north. Who said it was a straight passage? It probably isn't. It's carved underground. The barbarians might not be the greatest stonemasons. They're not dwarfs after all. The centre of each step has been worn smooth by the feet of countless creatures that once inhabited the lower levels of cold Ikaya. As you climb, you wonder how long you will remain undetected. So far you have neither seen nor heard any other living soul in these deserted passages. You have the element of surprise on your side. You now pray that Vonatar is unprepared for an intruder from the depths of his own fortress. It's not his by right, but by foul play. You reach the landing and pass through an empty hall towards a darkened archway above. Here the passage splits and branches off towards east and west. You are hungry and must now eat a meal or lose 3 endurance points. And as it just so happens, we have exactly 1 meal that we picked up at the start of the adventure to take with us. We will consume that. We have no guidance or hints, so Fighting Fantasy Rules says go east. You walk along the passage for several minutes until it takes a left turn. To your dismay, you see that a large fissure has opened, destroying most of the walls and floor of this new passage. The gaping hole is dark and wide. If we have rope, we could use it. If we do not possess a rope, we will have to retrace our steps and explore the other tunnel. We do have rope. A mlar bowl hangs from the ceiling directly above the fissure. I think I used to mentally call them mlar bowls for years, but it didn't feel right, because the apostrophe means it's an abbreviation and you're cutting out a syllable. Like hadn't or haven't, you know. We could try to attach a rope to the bowl and swing across, or, given that it appears to be hanging by very thin chains, and it's a magical device and we don't want to damage it necessarily, we could decide not to risk falling into the fissure and return along the passage and take the other route. Is it possible that we should be looking at the other map? No, probably not. This could almost be a different part of a map were it not for the fact that Mongoose placed a Javek in here. And we met the Javek in the previous episode. And bluestone triangles are needed for most of the doors in this adventure, and many of the barbarians in various rooms contain bluestone triangles, so it lets the party traverse through the keep. Okay, so if we use a rope to lasso the bowl and swing across somehow, firstly, we might not be able to get that rope back and take it with us. Secondly, there's something I want to get on this playthrough, and if I use the rope here, I won't be able to obtain it. Now, there are actually 3 items I'd like to obtain. When I reach the 3rd one, you might think that's the one I was speaking of. No, it's the first 2. So we will return back to the junction and head west. You had been walking along the passage for less than 5 minutes when it veers sharply northwards. Just ahead to your left you can see a large stone door. The lever is up and the door is closed. So that would theoretically be here. One moment. So, bizarrely then, if east was this way and the fissure is here, if this map needs to be flipped, west would be this way. If that was the chamber, it should be down here. It could be this room or one of these 2 rooms. We will pull the lever and open the door. We are infiltrating the keep and searching after all. The stone portal creaks open but grinds to an abrupt halt halfway across. The gap is a little over 2 feet wide and you are only just able to squeeze through to the chamber beyond. The air in the room is dark and stale. This chamber has obviously lain undisturbed for many thousands of years. Stone shelves are stacked high with bottles and flasks. On a table in the centre lies a beautiful pack full of different coloured potions. Lovely. And that is one of the nicer pieces of filler art in the book. It's very multi-purpose. I think it may have been recycled in Advanced Hero Quest. I do know the picture of the skeleton from this book was recycled in Advanced Hero Quest. We will absolutely examine these ancient potions, but first, A7, 6. I'll check both of those. Material, not material. See a possession taken before his imprisonment. Yeah. 7, the prison. Okay, no. Alright. Definitely seems to be significantly different. Although, it's worth pointing out that on this floor of the keep, both paths from that landing do eventually lead to the same place and a flight of stairs leading upwards. We will examine the ancient potions. The pack contains 4 ornate glass vials. They hold red, orange, green, and black liquids. Which one do you wish to examine? You may only examine each liquid once. Well, I will examine each liquid once. I want to obtain the green and the black potion. And this is where it's going to get a bit tricky. One of these 2 potions can be used in a future book, and I believe it is the black potion. However, in this book we will reach a point where we will be asked to use the green or the black potion, and we are forced to use the black potion first if we have it. And the green potion is a backup in case we don't have the black potion. Meaning that theoretically the black potion is used in this book, cannot be used further in the future, but an option to do so is offered. I can't remember if it's book 4, 5, 8 or 9. I literally went through the Mongoose editions of books 4, 5, 8 and 9 earlier, looking at every single bloody section purely for options to use items. I tell you what, there's not a lot of options to use items in book 5. And I couldn't see a chance to use either of them. Or was it book 8 where there wasn't a lot of options to use items? It was interesting. I'll just do these going down the line. So the red potion. Wiping the grime from the stopper, you unscrew it and carefully sniff the red liquid. We do have the Kai discipline of healing. You recognize the liquid to be distilled Lormspur, a herb of great healing properties. This concentrated potion is powerful enough to restore 5 endurance points. If you wish to keep this vial, remember to mark it on your action chart as a backpack item. We shall absolutely do that. 5 points is almost enough for 2 missed meals. Concentrated as opposed to potent. Lomspur potions normally heal 4 endurance points. Now we'll return to the pack and examine the orange vial. The stopper in this vial is jammed, and you have to take great care not to break the slender glass neck. It gradually loosens, and you sniff the orange liquid. If you have a Kai discipline of 6th sense or weapon skill, we have 6th sense, we do not have weapon skill. You recognize the potion to be distilled Alifer, a potion of strength. Your Kai masters used Alifer to increase their combat skill in battle, and there is enough concentrated Alifer in this vial to increase your combat skill by 4 for the duration of 1 combat. For it to be effective, you must swallow it immediately before the fight. If you wish to keep this vial, mark it on your action chart as a backpack item. We will absolutely take that. There we go. We're going to fill our pack at this rate. As for the green vial, you manage to remove most of the hardened wax that covers the stopper and ease the reluctant seal from the fragile glass stem. Do we have Kai Discipline, or have we reached the rank of aspirant, having completed one of the 2 previous books? We have done both of those things. So, you recognise the aroma of concentrated gallowbrush, or sleep-tooth as it is commonly called in Sommerlund. This is the thorny briar your Kai masters once used to induce sleep when tending to ill or injured horses. They distilled brew made from the plant. This distilled brew made from the plant is a very powerful sleeping potion. If you wish to keep the potion, remember to mark it on your action chart as a backpack item. We will absolutely do that. Gallow brush. And then finally the black vial. The stopper is sealed with wax. If you wish to break the seal, you must risk smashing the thin glass of the vial. Ooh, we can attempt to break the seal. The glass is very delicate, and it takes all your concentration and skill to avoid smashing the stem as we try to pry the wax out of it with... We don't even have a dagger. What do we have that we might use as a tool? We've got some food. We've got the 5 points of the Crystal Star Amulet. Coach ticket, that's not going to help us much, is it? Actually, if we use the fire sphere to burn the coach ticket to melt the wax, to soften it so we can get it out so it's not stuck to the sides so much, or just use the fire sphere to warm it up. Anyway, pick a number from the random number table. If you have the Kai discipline of either Mind Over Matter or Mind Blast, add 3 to the number you have picked. We have neither of those, so it's going to be completely random. We have an 8. Okay. You manage to crack the seal in exactly the right place and thereby avoid smashing the thin glass stem. The vapour rising from the black liquid is sharp and pungent. If you have ever visited the Graveyard of the Ancients, which we did in Book 1, then turn to section 177. You recognise the pungent smell of distilled graveweed. This black concentration is a very powerful poison, and you quickly replace the stopper to prevent the noxious fumes from escaping. If you wish to keep this potion, mark it on your action chart as a backpack item. I did want to take this with me, but when the option to use the black potion of graveweed or the green potion of gallowbrush is presented, I would like to use the green potion of gallowbrush, but we are forced to use the black graveweed first, and I don't believe the gallowbrush can be used in a future book. So much as I'd like to take this item with me, I think I will leave it here. Please let me know in the comment section down below if you can remember in which future book one of these 2 potions can be used, and which of those 2 potions it is. I believe we can purchase either graveweed or gallowbrush in book 8, but I think it might call out specifically the potion colour in the option to use it section. But as I said, I searched and wasn't able to find the place where it was used. Maybe it was book 6 or 7, but hey, I did not search through book 6. I will leave this poison behind. We're trying to infiltrate and remove the traitor before he stirs up any more hatred against our country and bring him back home to pay for his crimes. We are not trying to cause a diplomatic incident by slaying as many of the ice barbarians as we possibly can. Any options to avoid drawing their blood would be preferable. So, I will leave the black potion behind. Because when the option to use one of them in a future book is presented, there are other options to overcome the challenge. It's not the only possible thing you can do. That being said, it is impossible to complete Book 4 without the Sommerswerd, which means you must have completed Book 2 to be able to complete Book 4. Let us leave the chamber and continue northwards. Along the northwards? This was going west. Was there a corner? Veers sharply northwards. Yes, there was. And veering sharply in a direction is definitely almost a corner, if not an actual corner itself. You notice that the ceiling and walls of the corridor are covered with strange carvings. They seem to depict small cyclones or tornadoes, gradually changing shape into almost human form. Although puzzled by the strange hieroglyphs, you continue until you reach a point where the tunnel takes a sharp right turn. So, one of these, theoretically a right turn, would head this way, or this way, depending on if they flipped the map. Actually, if they have flipped the map and we're just coming along here, A6 could make total sense. Only a few feet along the northern wall is another stone door. Oh, so it would be really near the corner, so quite possibly this one then. Yeah, this map isn't matching up as closely as I remembered. The lever in the wall next to it is raised, and the door is firmly closed. Several yards further ahead, a flight of steps disappears upwards. So if these stairs were here, rather than at the back of this chamber, this could be, this door, this would be further along, like here, and this would be here. Then this does match up, and I think that does make this side of match up if we'd gone the other way across the chasm. But I can't say for certain. Well, let's open the door before going to the stairs. You depress the lever, and the stone door slides aside to reveal a large chamber. It is cold, stale, and empty, except for a granite chest lying near the east wall. Well, let's go and examine that chest. The faces of grotesque and distorted creatures adorn the surface of the chest. Their obscene expressions and unnatural proportions make you shudder with revulsion. Set into the centre of the lid is a large stone block carved with a hideous face, the mouth of which is shaped around a keyhole. We do, indeed, possess an ornate silver key. It was gained from the body of the crystal frostworm. Let us use it here. You insert the key and turn it clockwise. A click confirms that it works. Slowly, the shank of the key slips from your grip and disappears into the lock, and the great stone lid opens to reveal a magnificent silver helm. Remember to erase the silver key from your action chart. In the Mongoose edition, there is a note in this section which says, note that this needs to be the ornate silver key that is a special item. If you have an ornate silver key if you have a silver key that is a backpack item, that is not the one that works here. I can't remember if there was an opportunity to gain a silver key in book 1 or 2, but we need the one from Book 3 from the Crystal Frostworm, which we got in the last episode. We do indeed have the Kai discipline of Sixth Sense. You sense that this helm has magical properties that can aid you in combat. You detect no evil surrounding this helm or the stone chest in which it lies. First off, that's a nice picture. We're going to open that one up. It's much nicer than the mongoose illustration for the helmet, which doesn't look as fanciful and decorated. You wish to take... Yeah, we're going to put it on. Despite its size, the silver helm feels light and comfortable. Mark it on your action chart as a special item. If you're already wearing another helmet, we're not, you must discard it if you wish to keep the silver helm. I think there was a helmet we could have taken in Book 2, possibly. But it wouldn't have been as good as this one. If worn during combat, it will increase your combat skill by 2 points. The lid of the chest slowly closes and you leave the chamber, elated by your magnificent discovery. You continue along the corridor and explore the staircase ahead. So first off, the silver helm will increase our combat skill by 2. I'm going to put it before the Sommerswerd, because there will be times when we are not wielding the Sommerswerd and might use other weapons. Not very many times, mind you, as we're likely to just use the Sommerswerd at every given opportunity. You climb over 100 stone steps before arriving at a narrow landing. Pick a number from the random number table. If you have the Kai discipline of Sixth Sense, Tracking or Hunting, add 3 to this number. Well, we have all 3, but I don't think that's going to count somehow. Oh fuck. Shit. I really... You know what, I'm going to re-roll that. I really want this one. I really do. I got the 1 in 10 chance of it screwing up. Oh no, 2 in 10, so it's an 80% chance. So yeah, let's pretend I didn't roll that, because I hadn't quite fully clarified that only one of these bonuses apply. It's if you have one of these, add 3 to the number, not add 3 for each one. Now that we've determined that, we will make our roll. And you know what? We'll put in our +3 modifier here, and then roll it. We get a total of 5. So it rolled a 2! It did not roll a 1 or a 0. Oh dear. Oh dear. That dice roll can scupper a playthrough slightly, make it a bit harder, but not massively so. To your right, you notice that a stone door is cunningly concealed by an intricate wall carving. A close examination of the carving reveals a lever. Excellent. Let's pull it then. The stone door moves slowly to one side. It reveals a narrow archway that is full of billowing and swirling mist, hiding whatever it is that lurks beyond. You notice a severe drop in temperature, and I know this illustration was reproduced for Advanced Hero Quest. Great game. It did recycle a lot of pre-existing Games Workshop art. If you have the Kai discipline of Sixth Sense and have reached the Kai rank of Guardian, so 7 skills are left, so 5, 6, 7 completed both the previous books. Maybe I should write down the ranks, but we have all 7. You can sense the presence of a powerful life force beyond the misty arch. As you concentrate, you suddenly recall a tale told to you when you were a small child. The legend of the Vagadin Gate. This was a tale of ice demons, and how they once fought a war to be able to leave their world and come to Kalte. They were formless creatures without shape and substance, and existed as pure energy in another dimension, beyond the confines of space and time. The ice demons discovered the Vagadin Gate, a sort of door between their world and Magnamund. They fought each other to enter this gate, unaware of the fate that awaited them. The ancients had also discovered the gate. As the ice demons passed through the Vagadin, their spirits were imprisoned in crystals by the cunning ancients who harnessed the power of the ice demons to build Ikaya. The Malar bowls that light the fortress each contain the spirits of lesser ice demons trapped within. So if our rope had pulled down that Malar bowl when we tried to swing across, or if when we got to the other side we'd have an option to attempt to retrieve our rope, that could have pulled down the bowl and smashed it, we could have been in great trouble indeed. You also remember that the tale warns against destroying the crystal prisons. If an ice demon is released, it will seek to claim the body of its rescuer. Forewarned by your Kai skill, you enter the Misty Arch. You enter a massive chamber, ill-lit and ice-cold. A hidden temple of the ancients. The floor is made from slabs of quartz and granite and is littered with rock and ice. Your eye follows a line of tall pillars leading towards a sacrificial altar set in an alcove in the northern wall. Upon this altar lies a strange statue which seems to be carved from smooth white stone. At its head and feet, black staves rest upright in holes bored into the altar stone. To the left of the altar there is a darkened archway, through which a flight of stairs descends out of view. And through a bizarre twist, that flight of stairs descends to where the top of the flight of stairs we've just been climbing is, if we didn't find the secret door and come in here. Yeah, it's weird. It's not like Keep of the Lich Lord from Golden Dragon. Was it Keep of... No, the Lord of Shadow Keep. Where the guy who wrote the dungeon didn't map it out at all. And there's places where you're like, how did this passage or pathway or hallway end up leading me to that location? And you even get to a choice where it's like, oh, there's two flights of stairs, or like two passages, and they both lead to the exact same place, and it doesn't matter which one you took at all. And you're like, why was it even a choice then? Was it to pad out the sections? Anyway, when I get round to playing Golden Dragon Book 2, I will show you all the collector's edition with the introduction, where there is mention of what happened to the Lord of Shadow Keep and how the dungeon didn't make sense. The author essentially says, I'm surprised that he didn't map it out. I thought all players would map out the dungeon like early role players would, and it just yeah. Anyway, we can cross the temple and advance towards the staircase. Cross the temple by stepping only on the quartz flagstones or only on the granite flagstones. We have reason to suspect that this is a trap because of the checkerboard floor and the two kinds of floor tiles and the altar, and the fact this is an ancient temple. Statue lies on a limestone slab with two black staves. So is it lying there as if it's like it's resting in state? Now the quartz flagstones are obviously special. The granite flagstones are just stone, right? We have no indication of what will happen. If this is about conducting energy of some kind, would we receive a special shock for stepping on the quartz flagstones? Would we not transfer as much energy by stepping on the granite flagstones, I'm going to let you know now that stepping on the granite flagstones is safe and will allow us to reach the staircase on the other side of the chamber. However, we do not wish to be safe and reach the staircase on the other side of the chamber. We wish to activate the trap. So we could just walk across stepping on both kinds of stones, not even caring. Or, let's presume the quartz flagstones are special and step on them. Note that stepping on both turns to section 60. As you step onto the quartz, you sense a vibration that runs up your leg to your knee. You see that within the flagstone, a dull light pulsates and a humming sound can be heard emanating from the altar. With your heart pounding, you prepare yourself for an attack and slowly advance. Turn to section 60, the same one we would have turned to if we'd stepped on both stones. You have taken less than a dozen steps when the brilliant crackle of blue energy arcs between the blue staves. You see the white statue beginning to move as if activated by the surge of power. We can attack the creature before it rises from the altar. At section 150, note, I'm not going to do that just yet. We can remain perfectly still and prepare for combat, or run for the dark archway beyond and down the steps. I will remain still and draw my sword. For it is the sword of the sun. Because that way we get to see this lovely picture. And look at that. It looks almost inhuman in a way, in its simplicity, like the raised hunched shoulders and everything, where it's marching ferociously forwards, crackling with energy. The statue rises slowly from the altar and advances towards you. As it comes closer, you feel an intense chill radiating from its smooth, stony skin. However, its movements are stiff and uncertain. You could easily dodge its outstretched arms. They don't look to be particularly outstretched there. We could attack the statue, section 150, just as if, which tells us that attempting to strike it before it rises from the altar, before it would rise from the altar, would have given us no special advantage, and we would have ended up in the same situation as here. Or run past it to the archway, which I believe is the same. So those two options are the same. So by waiting, we've simply been presented with the two options we previously had, but with some more context. I will attack this strange statue. Just to let you know, if you do not have the Sommerswerd and have not played Book 2, this is not an option you should be taking. The stones, your blow splinters the smooth white surface of the statue. A freezing blast of wind hisses from the crack, and within seconds a film of glistening ice covers every inch of the chamber. Unless you have applied Bacnar oil to your skin, we have not. You lose 2 endurance points due to the sudden drop in temperature. We will absolutely lose 2 points of endurance. To your mounting horror, you see that the wind is taking the shape of a small cyclone. It is drawing all the loose ice and rock of the chamber towards its core. You have released an ice demon, and it is intent on your destruction. And remember, we just learned about those. We do possess the Sommerswerd. If we are lacking the Sommerswerd, we could use a fire sphere of Kalte, and the ice demon will not approach the fire sphere, and we can progress on relatively safely. I do like the ice crystals forming around the border of the picture. That's a very nice touch. But we do possess the Sommerswerd, and turning to a new section allows us to restore one of those 2 lost endurance points, because we have the Art of Healing. The raging wind tears at your clothes and bombards you with sharp flumes of ice and rock. As you raise the Sommerswerd, an intense howling fills your ears. It is a cry of horror and desperation. You strike at the core of this demon, slicing through the cyclone and into the fabric of its being. In an instant, the wind and the ghastly wailing cease. All that remains are the shattered pieces of a hollow statue scattered on the floor. And we may now search the altar and the alcove, instead of going straight for the stairs. This is what we wish to do all along. I think it may be possible if you have the fire sphere. I'm pretty sure I did this on my first playthrough, but I'm not sure that my first playthrough was successful. I believe I may have been destroyed by something we have not yet seen, and it's not the creature on the cover of the book. But when the time comes, I will mention it quite clearly. You carefully examine the altar and the two black staves protruding from its surface. The crackling arc of energy that linked these staves seemed to die at the very moment you plunged the Sommerswerd into the cyclonic demon. You notice that where the statue had lain, 2 stone buttons have now risen from the surface of the altar. Let us regain that second point of endurance and go back up to 24. And with Sixth Sense, you sense that these buttons are an ancient lock of some kind. If pressed in the correct order, they may reveal a secret compartment or chamber, but there is also the possibility that, if pressed in the wrong order, it may activate a trap. We will absolutely press the buttons. The stone buttons rise less than an inch above the smooth altar surface. You notice that they are each surrounded by strange, barely perceptible hieroglyphs eroded by the passage of time. You now have to decide in which sequence you will press the buttons. If you possess the Kai discipline of mind over matter, you can press the buttons without actually touching them. We do not yet have that ability. We can press left then right, we can press right then left, or we can press both of them together. So Fighting Fantasy Rule says left is best, so we press left then right. I'll let you know now. Pressing left then right will allow us to obtain an item. Pressing right then left will allow us to obtain a different item. And I think pressing them both together gives us the big electric shock and we die or take a lot of damage. I will press left then right. And this is the item I wanted to obtain. And if you're familiar with this book, you've probably got a good idea how the rest of this run is going to go. A secret compartment slides open at the base of the left altar staff. Inside, you discover a small statuette, a stone effigy of some tentacled creature. I mean, that's more like a plaque. But it's... Oh! Oh! I see it now. So in the Mongoose book, the illustration for this looks like a three-dimensional object, like a sculpture. I think this is the small compartment. That's the floor of a compartment. That's the edges of it. And this inside is the stone effigy. I never saw it that way before. I imagined that it was like a flat bas-relief carving with this rising up from the surface and this being sort of recessed with a raised ridge around. Oh, that looks shit. I preferred the way I imagined it. Okay. If you wish to keep this effigy, slip it into your pocket and mark it on your action chart as a special item. We will absolutely take the stone effigy. And I'm writing in brackets, you know what it is. We will not attempt to press the buttons again. Let's leave the temple. As you pass through the archway, you notice a lever set into the stark stone wall. You pull it and a door slides across, sealing the temple behind you. The temperature is warmer and you can hear a low rumbling sound somewhere in the distance. Ahead, you can see a light at the end of a dark passageway. You discover that it is shining out of an oblong portal close to the floor, through which you can see a corridor 10 feet below. We can squeeze through the portal and drop into the corridor, or continue along the passage we are currently on. Now, either of these choices will lead to a somewhat similar situation. There is a chamber coming up ahead which we will encounter. If we squeeze through the portal and drop down into the corridor, we will be approaching that chamber on the level of the door. If we continue along this upper passage, we will be reaching that chamber through an upper window and looking down from an upper window. For narrative purposes and enjoying the encounter better, I would like to approach this chamber from the lower level of the door. So I'm going to squeeze through a portal and drop down into the corridor. Holding your equipment and your breath, you try to land as quietly as you can on the dusty floor of the corridor. Unfortunately, you twist your ankle in the fall and cannot stifle a yelp of pain. Lose 1 endurance point. Don't worry, we'll get it back next section. I'm not even going to mark it because I know which section we're going to, because we're asked if we have a discipline. Then, to your horror, you see an ice barbarian seated less than 30 feet away to your left. His head is slowly turning in your direction because we went ow. However, a quick glance to your right reveals another corridor heading north, less than 15 feet from where you now kneel. Do we have the Kai discipline of camouflage? We do. This is not a combat section, so we regain the point of endurance we had lost. The stone walls of the corridor are covered with strange carvings which cast deep shadows. Using your skill, you hide yourself in their gloom. The ice barbarian walks slowly towards you, his movements tense and unsteady. Your skin crawls as you notice for the first time his white pupilless eyes. Holding your breath, you pray that he has not seen you. Is he blind? He could be blind. Although I seem to recall that other ice barbarians under the mental control of Vonatar also have white pupilless eyes. So it's more a magical control thing than a perception thing. We're going to have to roll a random number, and we don't have to roll, we get to roll. If we didn't have the discipline of camouflage, we wouldn't even be rolling, and he'd pretty much see us. So, let's roll. No +3 bonus this time. Straight up roll. What do we get? We get a 0. Because the 10 is a 0. The ice barbarian passes within 6 inches of your hiding place. He pauses before walking back along the corridor. You breathe a sigh of relief. You have not yet been discovered. I notice the dice roller is rolling very low this morning. Tonight? It's 9 o'clock in the morning. If you wish to escape on tiptoe along the northern corridor, or we could go and attack him anyway. Again, I'm not trying to murder every single ice barbarian in the place and start an intercontinental war. I'm trying to capture the traitor and get out of him. Obviously, this is a leave no witnesses or no one stand in our way and block our retreat option. It's a bit brutal and ruthless. And we're a little more honourable than that. And also, given the way we had to kill those 2 old barbarian men earlier in the caverns outside the keep, we feel bad about that and we'd like to kind of make up for it. So we will tiptoe along the northern corridor, which we could progress up after fighting this ice barbarian anyway if we wanted to. I believe he has a cursed item on him that we do not wish to take. Turning a corner, you breathe a sigh of relief. Behind you, all is silent, but you become aware that the low rumbling sound you detected earlier is much louder in this corridor. Did we? I don't remember that. If we had not dropped down into this corridor and had progressed along the other corridor, we would have heard the low rumbling sound earlier. We will investigate the door. There is a lever in the wall and a spy hole in the centre of the door. Peering through the spy hole, you see a strange sight. A man in a dark robe is kneeling in the centre of a pentacle chalked on the floor of the chamber. His head is bowed and he seems to be in a trance. There he is. Looks like he may be a monk or... No, that's more of a liripipe. The liripipe is the hood of the long drooping back. Than sort of a monk's habit, so maybe not. We will pull the lever and open the door. As the stone door grinds open, the man jerks his head back in surprise. "Who's there?" he whispers in a thin, strangled voice. His eyes glint from beneath the shadow of his ragged hood. Suddenly he seems to recognize you and jumps excitedly to his feet. "The gods be praised! Ikaya, Lord! My name is Tygon. I'm a merchant from Ragaddorn. The ice barbarians kidnapped me in Liuk and brought me here. I now await an audience with their new Brumalmark, the some-lending sorcerer they call Vonatar. It seems that he shall decide my fate, but if you free me from this sorcerer's pentagram, I'll aid you as best I can." You recognize the pentagram to be a circle of binding, a magical prison that can only be broken from the outside. You can easily wipe away part of the circle and free this man. So we could free him, we could close the cell door and return to the main corridor, or, since we visited Ragaddorn in Book 2, we could ask him some simple questions about the city to allay any suspicion we may have about who he claims to be. I believe we only get to ask one of these. We could ask who the current ruler of Ragaddorn is. We could ask him the name of the river that divides Ragaddorn into east and west, or ask the name of the tavern in Barnacle Street. We will ask him the name of the river that divides Ragaddorn into east and west. It's something that anyone from the city of Ragaddorn should know. And before reading this section, the man stares you straight in the eye and says, "The Ragad." Now, we know for a fact that it's the River Dawn. And we don't even need to look at the map to remember it. If we had asked him either of the other two questions, he would have given a correct answer. He knows who the current leader of Ragaddorn is. And he knows the name of the tavern on Barnacle Street. But he does not know the name of the river that divides the city. Essentially, he did his homework. He researched a lot of facts about Ragaddorn to make his cover story believable, but he didn't think the name of the river was important enough to remember. So when he gets asked, he knows it's half of the city name or relates to the city name and guesses. Gets it wrong. We could free him. We will not free him. We will close the cell door and return to the main corridor. He is a Helghast who was sent here by the Darklords to assassinate Vonatar for failing to act as their agent successfully, to punish him for his failure. I believe he is what killed me on my first playthrough for the book many years ago, or my first playthrough was successful. So I got the stone effigy, met this Helghast, and I didn't have the Sommerswerd. And as we know, Helghasts have 30 endurance and a combat skill of something like 20, so I probably didn't survive that encounter. So, leaving him where he is, we continue along the corridor. On the west wall of the corridor you see another stone door with a small spy hole cut into the centre, revealing a cell on the other side. An old man is huddled in the far corner of the cell, his face and hair matted with blood and dirt. His blue robes are so filthy that the crescents and stars embroidered on them are almost totally obscured. Let's open the cell door. "Upon my soul! A Kai Lord!" he exclaims, his eyes now wide with astonishment. "How I've prayed for freedom, for deliverance from this infernal place, and although hope never deserted me, I never expected such an illustrious rescuer." In the middle of his excitement, the old man is suddenly disturbed by a fit of coughing that leaves him pale and exhausted. It is a few minutes before he can speak again. "My name is Loikaima. I am an elder of the Magician's Guild of Toran," he says slowly, removing a small crystal star pendant, the symbol of the guild, from beneath his tattered robes. The guild is known as the Brotherhood of the Crystal Star, and the magician shows you his pendant as proof of his identity. You ask him how he came to be imprisoned here in Ikaya, many hundreds of miles from his native Toran. Let's absolutely open that picture. Loikaima is a memorable character in the series. I don't believe he appears in any later books, but he's a fun character. And I believe his role in the novel was slightly enlarged and extended. He played a slightly more, a bit more of a slightly more developed personality. Did a little bit more, I think. "Vonotar, that unspeakable wretch, is responsible for my plight. Days before the Darklord invasion of Sommerlund, he betrayed your Kai masters to win power. The black power of death and darkness. However, he failed to play his part in the war plans his evil masters had laid. The Darklords do not tolerate such weakness. Mercy has no place in their brutal minds. In the bitterness of defeat, they sought to destroy Vonotar for his crime of failure. Vonotar knew that I possessed the only means to effect an escape from their vengeance, for my guild staff has the power of teleportation. He tried to steal it and flee to the safety of Ikaya by himself, but he learnt that its power is not for all men to share. Only I am blessed with its secret. He was angry and would have murdered my kinspeople had I not agreed to bring him here, so I had no choice but to do so." Which kind of makes the novel story of Vonotar walking across the icy wastes to Ikaya with his Gaiac bodyguards somewhat irrelevant, and he must have captured Loikaima. Maybe I should dig it out and reread it at some point. I know roughly where it is. Of course, now as an older and more experienced man, I'll probably look at it and go, "Oh, the writing isn't quite as good or impressive as I once thought." But it was impressive enough at the time. "Ever since I have been a prisoner in this cell, Vonotar has tortured my body and my mind, but I have not divulged the secret of my guild staff, which he now keeps in the hall of the Brumalmark. If I were to tell him, my life would no longer be of any value. You tell Loikaima of your mission and of the events that have led to your meeting. He offers to show you a route through Ikaya to the hall of the Brumalmark, where Vonotar now resides as ruler, and if you retrieve his guild staff, he promises to teleport you to the coast in time to rendezvous with your ship. For the first time since you fell into the Caverns of Kalte, you feel confident that your mission can now succeed. And I will now inform you all, dear viewers, that if you choose not to enter this cell and rescue Loikaima, but instead continue along the corridor, and bearing in mind that this cell is accessible from the upper corridor as well, which leads you through a window, it leads you past a window in the top of the Helghast cell then down a flight of steps to this path. But an alternate section, not 254, where you can go into 56 or head along a different corridor. If you don't come in and rescue Ikaya, you aren't going to finish the adventure. And you are on a road to nothing. And this is the infamous section 192. If you possess a glowing crystal. We do not possess a glowing crystal. The glowing crystal would have been in the chamber, in the temple with the statue containing the ice demon and the stone effigy. If we had pressed left then right, then a different compartment would have opened up containing a glowing crystal. This glowing crystal is not the large diamond we found out in this cavern here before this map that isn't entirely accurate, is it really? And since we have, I think we essentially get led to somewhere near here, and then this bit might map out a bit better, but I can't remember for certain. Anyway, the reason this section is infamous is that it is unavoidable. Any successful playthrough of the book, and one moment, if I just, I'm going to do this, one moment. Project Aeon, language selection, English, books. Book 3, where are we, No, I was looking for standard, simple, simpler paths. There's no adjustable zoom in and zoom out on this, but you know, we go all the way to here. Section 192. So Kalkoffs, yeah. Could have fought Doom Wolves. Let's look for section. Everything coalesces around section 306. Doom Wolves, Ice Barbarians, probably not there. 215. This is a great example, though, of how the Lone Wolf books flow. You know, you kind of expand out through options that lead to a common point, whereas Fighting Fantasy books are more like a spider diagram and let you go off in lots of different directions. Ice Barbarians, small. So we've gone too far. If we see the Akra Neonor, oh, we'll see it. Don't worry. 166, no. 6, no. 306. 28. But I do need to find section... Helghast, yep. There's a few different... 2 different versions of a Helghast encounter, shortly after which we should have section 56. There we go. With Ikaya, which leads to section 192. All these paths that don't lead to section 192 are pretty much dead ends that lead to auto kills, I think. Yeah. Whereas 192 is required to take this branch of paths to 173 and 350, which is of course V's success. Whereas these all lead to failure and a bunch of auto kills. The reason I'm bringing this up is this is an unavoidable section on any successful playthrough. And this entry was missing from the Mongoose edition of Book 3. Pretty much everyone who received a copy of the book reported this to Mongoose, and they sent out a replacement book where they'd gone through and fixed it, and this section was still missing. They then sent out a second replacement book because they finally found the missing section 192. They'd put a piece of filler art on top of it, and it had covered the entire section. And it is an unavoidable section that is absolutely required, even though it's a simple yes, no, do you have this thing? And we do not, by the way. If we did have it, Ikaya would ask us why we were carrying an evil demonic gem that was draining our life force and make us throw it away. If we did not have Ikaya with us, then we would reach certain points of the adventure, and if we had the glowing crystal, it would finish draining our life energy and we would die. But we do not have it. We have the stone effigy instead. "Follow me," says Ikaya. "I've listened to the sounds of Ikaya for over a year, and the secret sliding doors and the hidden routes here are no mystery to me. I have learned more about these corridors and passages from the confines of myself than Vonatar has discovered with all of his cunning." You follow the old magician through a network of secret passages and tunnels, up long flights of stairs and into chambers long and dark and cold. At the top of one very steep staircase, you come to a stone door. A strange, sickly smell is seeping from a small spy hole. "The kitchens," whispers Ikaya, showing his distaste for Ikaya cuisine by sticking out his tongue and grimacing. "The kitchens!" You can see that this secret door opens next to a fireplace, in which burns a roaring fire. Hanging over the fire is a large stone cauldron of gruel. 2 ice barbarians sit at a table nearby with empty bowls in front of them. We left the potion of black graveweed behind. We do possess the potion of green gallowbrush. Lacking either of those, we could burst into the chamber and attack the barbarians, catching them by surprise. I don't like the fact you are forced to use the black graveweed first. I would prefer it if you were given the option to choose. If green gallowbrush is the one that can be used in a later book, that would be interesting. But again, I've not been able to find it, so... I seem to remember back in the day, I think on a few playthroughs I would house rule this to keep the black graveweed, use the green gallowbrush instead, and then have the black graveweed available for a later book. Oh well. You take the potion from your backpack and carefully open the door just wide enough to be able to allow the contents of the vial, to empty the contents of the vial into the bubbling cauldron. You do not have long to wait for the ice barbarians to fall asleep after their meal. If we'd used the black graveweed, we would have lethally poisoned them. And we can now remove the green gallowbrush potion from our backpack. The kitchen is small and surprisingly well stocked with herbs. "These are from the trading post of Lyuk," says Ikaya, peering closely at the labelled jars, several of which he crams into his pockets. "These are from the trading post of Lyuk," as he's peering closely. He's an old man, mind you. Opening 2 herb jars, he mixes the contents and offers them to you. "It will give you strength, lone wolf," he says. You eat the dry leaves and feel a warm glow radiate throughout your body. Restore 6 endurance points to your current total. We are already at our maximum, so we will not restore any. And turn to section 301. "We're on the same level as the hall of the Brumalmark," whispers Ikaya, peering through a crack in the kitchen door. "It's at the end of this corridor." Two ice barbarians stand beside the jewel-encrusted doors that lead to the great hall. They are covered from head to toe in strange bone armour and armed with crystal swords, not the typical attire of ice barbarians. They normally use the weapons just for the bones just for their weapons and a little bit of armour, but full armour. And the crystal swords are not their normal weapons at all. The old wizard steps back from the door and says, "We must deal with them silently and swiftly." He takes 3 jars from his pockets and mutters a strange incantation as he mixes the contents together in a stone bowl. There is a pitcher of water on the table. He splashes a few drops onto the herbs and wisps of blue smoke arise. "This will silence the guards if we can move it close enough to them. We do have the Kai discipline of camouflage. If we did not have it, we could use mind over matter, and if we did not have that, we could have the discipline of hunting. We have 2 of those, and mind over matter would be a fun one to get. But again, we are asked in order, so we do have the discipline of camouflage. We're not asked if we want to use these, which is often the way such choices are provided to the player. So, Loikaimar hands you some strips of cloth with which to plug your nostrils. You take a deep breath, pick up the bowl of smoking herbs and leave the kitchen. Using your Kai discipline of camouflage to blend in with the shadows of the corridor, you edge your way nearer and nearer to the unsuspecting guards. You leave the bowl in the shadow of a pilaster and return to the kitchen to wait for it to take effect. In less than a minute, the ice barbarians collapse to the floor, and you approach the hall of the Brumalmark undetected. You are delighted to discover that one of the great jewelled doors is unlocked. Preparing yourself for attack, you gently push the door ajar and enter Vonotar's chamber. I should have probably finished recording around the Helghast encounter or Loikaimar's cell. The Helghast prison, or the drop-down point to it, is where I was considering leaving off. I might still be able to fit everything in, okay? And look at that. Look at that. That is gloriously horrific and repulsive and disgusting all at the same time. The Hall of the Brumalmark is a vast chamber constructed of crystal blocks rising to a central plateau. On this stands the Brumalmark throne, as old as Ikaya itself. There Vonotar sits, surrounded by the tomes and eldritch trappings of a necromancer. He is wrapped in study and does not see you enter the hall. He remains oblivious to your presence until Loikaimer sneezes. "Who dares disturb me?" he hisses, rising from the Brumalmark throne, his eyes searching for an intruder. Upon seeing you, he emits a horrified gasp and fumbles for his black staff. He has the look of a criminal who has been discovered in the act of some dreadful crime. Quickly, you raise your weapon and begin to climb the crystal pyramid. You know that you have little time to reach him if you are to overpower and capture him alive. You reach the edge of the plateau in time to see a wide circle of blocks descending around the throne. Between you and Vonotar, a deep moat is forming. Then, from the depths of the moat, you hear a ghastly, inhuman gibbering. You brace yourself for combat, but are totally unprepared for the horror that now faces you. From out of the darkness slithers a huge, ghoulish green monster. Its deformed head is a mass of tentacles and suckers that oozes a putrid black slime. At the centre of this writhing mass, a hideous yellow eye pulsates. Vonotar has control over this monster, and he is directing it towards you. And I will absolutely open that picture, because that's going to be in the thumbnail. We do possess an effigy. Now, I believe in the novel, Lone Wolf does not possess the effigy. He might have picked up the glowing gem or not gone into that chamber at all. I think Loikaimer warns him about the glowing gem and he gets rid of it. And that he instead fights the creature while Loikaimar and Vonatar engage in magical combat and spells are going back and forth. And it then does lead to a certain other famous illustration from his book. Well, popular, but I'm pretty sure a lot of you will like. Where lacking the effigy... if you do not possess an effigy, but do possess the Sommerswerd, yes, the Sommerswerd works against this demonic, horrific, Cthulhu-esque creature. It's not an auto-kill. I'm just going to show it's a fight, but you get to do double damage against it. And you have to win the fight in 5 rounds or less, but the Sommerswerd doubles damage. It has 50 endurance points. The Akra Neonor, if you have neither of the above, you get to fight it, and you have 7 rounds to try and defeat it, because there's no way in hell you're going to do 50 points of damage in 5 rounds without the Sommerswerd. Unless your combat skill is... you're not going to be... Without the Sommerswerd, the highest you could possibly be is like a 23, maybe... think about if you could keep the shield from book 1 somehow, you could have a 25, so you'd be rolling with a +3 column, so you could get 16. So it's possible within 5 without the Sommersword, but not really, However, since we possess a stone effigy of this creature, you suddenly realize that you possess an effigy of this hideous creature. Taking the effigy from your pocket, you hold it before you. It begins to glow with a strange iridescence that holds the creature mesmerized. Vonatar has lost control of the creature, and it is yours to command. The wizard, realizing he is lost, retreats from the moat. Loikaimar arrives at your side. He is breathless and is trying to say something to you. Use it, Lone Wolf. Send it against Vonatar. You will the monster to capture and hold Vonatar, and it instantly obeys your command. The traitor shrieks with terror and faints as the slimy tentacles close around him. You notice Loikaimar hurl a handful of powdered herbs into the moat. Within seconds, a mass of vines and creepers coil upwards, forming a bridge across the moat to the Brumalmark throne. Once safely across, you will the creature to release Vonatar and return to the moat. Obediently, it slithers into the darkness, and the crystal blocks slowly rise. I believe if you defeat the Akara Neonor swiftly enough, the stone blocks rise, closing the moat, and Loikaimar can hurl his handful of herbs and plants that grow vines and plants that entrap Vonatar. And that is, I think, the way it's done in the novel. Tie him up, Lone Wolf, shouts Loikaimar as he searches. Tie him up, Lone Wolf, shouts Loikaimar as he searches for his guild staff. And be sure to strip him of his rings and amulets. He is a master of trickery. We would not want him to miss his special homecoming to Sommerlund. You follow Loikaimar's instructions and make sure that Vonatar is securely tied. Ah, here she is, the old magician eventually cries triumphantly, discovering his guild staff amongst the tangle of vines at the base of the throne. He is anxious to leave, so you thank him for his help and pass him your map of Kalte, pointing out the position of the ship Cardinal. I won't be needing that, he replies. Maps are invariably wrong. I prefer to rely on my own sense of direction. And this, I feel, is what was slightly expanded in the novel. Loikaimar raises his guild staff, and a dazzling beam of light flows from its tip. He makes 3 wide sweeps of the air, and the whole of the Brumalmark is transformed into an umbrella of colour. As the colours fade, you become aware of a sudden drop in temperature. You now stand upon the Lyuk ice shelf at a point less than half a mile from where the Cardinal lies at anchor. Loikaimar and Vonatar are close by, both shivering in the chill morning air. Within minutes you are sighted by the ship's lookout, and a longboat is dispatched. As a wriggling Vonatar is hoisted unceremoniously aboard the Cardinal and deposited in the brig, the captain is the first to congratulate you on your skill and daring. But how did you return so quickly? He asks incredulously. We were not expecting you for another 10 days. Let us say, interrupts Loikaimar, that the wisdom of the Kai and the lore of the Magicians' Guild can surpass the limitations of even time itself. A puzzled expression crosses the captain's face, but it is gradually replaced by a smile as he begins to understand the magician's curious answer. Your journey to Anscaven is swift, but you are saddened by your memories of the brave guides that are left behind. Your arrival in the port is greeted by an anxious crowd. They feared that your early return is a sign of your mission's failure. When the news of Vonatar's capture becomes known, your warrior skills are required once again, this time in the defense of your enemy against the seething mob of outraged Somlending that assault Anscaven jail. Safe passage is eventually secured to Toran, where trial awaits the traitor. Upon the dawn of the feast of Maesmarn, in the depths of the guild hall of the Crystal Star, Vonatar the traitor is tried by his brotherhood, and found guilty of his terrible crimes. He is led away in silence to the deepest chamber of the guild hall, wherein lies the Dazian, a portal of total darkness, the door of an eternal prison from which there can be no escape, although apparently he does escape later on and push Lone Wolf through the Dazian gate. And that's actually how the novels end. Because the guy writing the novels decided that the best way to save Magnamund was remove Lone Wolf from it, because Lone Wolf was getting more angry and violent and dangerous. You are the avenger of his crimes, and it is you who cast the wretched traitor into the limbo of Dazian. Your mission is now complete. You have survived the Caverns of Kalte and freed Somlending from the menace of Vonatar. But the heat of battle and the challenge of a new and desperate quest awaits you in Book 4 of the Lone Wolf series, entitled The Chasm of Doom. Now, we have a footnote here. The portal you throw Vonatar into is known as a Shadow Gate. This particular Shadow Gate leads to the Dazian, a realm from which no one has ever returned. See, I always took Dazian to be the name of the gate because of the way the wording here, and cast into the Dazian, into the limbo of the Dazian, like through the gate. We will, of course, open this, because this picture is a double-page spread at the back of the book. And we can see how grim-faced these guards are as they look at the traitor as he's about to be cast in, and Lone Wolf himself gets to give out the punishment for the crime. I was asked in the comments section of, I think, the previous video in this book, which is my favourite book in the series, and I think for nostalgia purposes, it's got to be this one. It brings a sense of completion, bringing a storyline to an end. It works perfectly as a standalone book. You don't need the Sommerswerd to complete it, but there are many times where the Sommerswerd is invaluable, but not required. So, without having played Book 2, you can play this book and realise there is this item that can be obtained from a previous book that you do not have access to. It's nowhere in this book. And you have been instructed that in this series, items carry across from book to book. So you're like, oh, I want to get more books. Right? If you've played Book 2, as a storyline, Book 2 doesn't feel so good without Book 1. A lot of people see Books 1 and 2 as a complete story. I always feel that Books 1, 2 and 3 are a much more complete story, because without this, you have the tail end of what happens to Vonatar. He escapes and nothing happens. It seems for people who think of these two, I think there was talk many years ago among the fan community of trying to turn the first two books into a film. Don't think anything ever happened with it. Um, but Vernitar's escape feels a bit weak, so whereas it really sets up this story quite nicely. Whereas here we're just like, oh yeah, there's a dangerous adventure to go do next. It doesn't feel like there's any unfinished business here. The first book, at the end of the first book, you are told you need to go get the Sommerswerd. End of the second book, Vernitar's on the loose, you need to go get him. End of the third book, job's done. There's another adventure if you want to go do it, but hey, you're a hero, you've brought back the traitor, and he's been sentenced for his crimes and cast into the Dazian Gate for all eternity, from which there is no escape, although somehow in the novels Vernitar escapes and throws Lone Wolf into the Dazian because, I don't know. I didn't read any of the novels past this one. I've only got 2 of the novels. I've got the one that is the second half of Flight from the Dark and the one that is this book. And they're on the bookshelf somewhere in the back room. It'll take a lot of digging to get them out, but I think I know which shelf they're on and roughly whereabouts they are. But there we go. Another adventure down. I managed to get it all in, and I haven't run out of time yet. I'd love to talk about this one, but honestly, I may be interrupted at any moment and don't know how long I've got. So, I do like this adventure. It's possible to complete the adventure with very minimal, almost no combat. I mean, you'd have to fight the Crystal Frostworm to get the key for the... No, you wouldn't, because you don't need the Silver Helm. Although it's very helpful, especially if you don't have the Sommerswerd. If you don't have the Sommerswerd, the Silver Helm is a vital item in this book and beyond, as is the Fire Sphere. You can get the Fire Sphere from the 2 Ice Barbarians without fighting them by just scaring them off. You can then use it to avoid fighting the Javek. You can avoid fighting the Crystal Frostworm and use the Bluestone Triangle to run into the keep. Don't get the Silver Helm. I think with the Fire Sphere you can still get the Stone Effigy from the temple. And then there's just the chance of being spotted by that barbarian when you hide. He could detect you. So overall, it's almost a book where you can avoid combat entirely. It is fun to do some of the fights, and I think Lone Wolf cuts a lot of tentacles off the Akara Neonor in the novel while he's fighting it. And he occasionally... At one point in that chapter, the focus completely moves to Loikaimar and Vernitar, and then it kind of comes back to Lone Wolf, and he's defeating the monster. He's been fighting a lot. He's nearly defeated, and he looks up and sees what's going on. But he's almost ignored as the 2 wizards concentrate on their magical battle. I like this book a lot. I really do. And don't worry, I'm a bit short on sleep, and I have things I need to do today, so yeah. Okay. There's a lot of things I'd probably like to say, but I'm too sleepy to remember half of them, and I've probably said a lot of them already. I like the journey going out to fetch Vernitar from Kalte. We get to interact with a very foreign culture, and that will become an interesting theme of the books going forwards, especially books 4, 5. We get to go to foreign countries and meet foreign people and interact with them. And have adventures in their homelands. For now, though, Sommerlund is safe. The traitor has been incarcerated in the Dazian, and nothing can go wrong until Book 4 happens. as is typical of this series, I'll probably take a week off between books 3 and 4 just to have a little bit of a break. I do not remember book 4 anywhere near as well as I remember the first 3 books. So yeah, I don't even remember. I remember there's a siege in book 9, a big swamp in book 8. Book 6, you need to go through a maze where you need to go like right, left, right, left, or something. There's a lot of right-hand turns, which breaks the Fighting Fantasy rule, and you have to make 5 50-50 choices in the dark with a monster hunting you, and if you take one of those 5 wrong turns, you die. It just auto-kills you in the darkness. And there's no hints, no clues. It's just, you're at this section, turn left or right. You're at this section, turn left or right. You're at this section, turn left or right. And, oh, look, you died. You know. That is a trial and error thing at the back of the book. So this is one of the reasons, and it would frustrate someone to go back and replay the first 5 books to then be allowed to play that one. This is why I highly recommend treating the end of each book as a save point. And that's exactly what I'm going to do now. I'm going to save this. And actually, come on, there we go. Copy it all. Lone Wolf folder. Backup sheet. We'll pop it all in there. We will remove the section 221 reference. Save as backup sheet from book 3. And I will look at it later and see if there's... I might remove the red pass and the coach ticket because we will never need those again. The large diamond is used to distract one of the Ice Barbarian guards in book 3. I think you sort of, skim it out along the floor and he sees it and goes, ooh, and goes over to pick it up and you get to sneak past. So I don't think we're ever going to need that again. We'll take off the stone effigy. We'll never use that again either, and we might as well leave it or give it to the Magician's Guild so that someone responsible can look after it. Because if the monster wasn't summoned and it's in the area, we should leave it in the area so someone can control it. So we'll leave that in Kalte, I think. And I'm removing the coach ticket and the red pass because they're never used again. I don't think Bluestone Triangle's ever used again either, but I'll hang on to it just in case. Right, there we go. I'm finally going to go get some rest. And open the curtains in the front room as it's 3 minutes to 10. I hope you've all enjoyed this one, even if it's a little light on the bloodshed. But hey, it was an infiltrate and capture mission, essentially a rescue mission, except the target doesn't want to be rescued, and it's more of an abduction. But done for a righteous cause. And with justice done and Vonatar wallowing in the Dazian, never to escape, allegedly, I'm going to end the episode here. I hope you all enjoyed this one, and I'll look forward to see you all in the next one. For Sommerlund and the Kai.